Hello everyone, Totally T-Mac here with more news you can use. Okay, I admit it, I bit the bullet and plopped down more money than I care to admit to pick up the new iPhone 15 Pro Max, even though I already own the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now, I'm not a tech nerd or expert, I'm just a guy who loves his gadgets, and from that perspective, I'm going to tell you why I decided to pick up Apple's latest and greatest so you can decide if, as a regular person like me, it's the right product for you. Now, first off, even though they look similar, one of the biggest differences you will notice right off the bat between the 15 Pro Max and the 14 Pro Max is the weight. The 15 Pro Max just feels much lighter, and there's a reason for that. Last year's model is made of stainless steel, while this year's model has brushed titanium. Titanium is not only lighter, but stronger. Now, I don't know about you, but I am constantly holding and using my phone all day long. So having a phone that is about 10% lighter, and frankly feels a lot more lighter than that, makes my iPhone life a lot easier. Also, the 14 Pro Max design is squared and boxy, and it cuts into your hand, making it feel really uncomfortable to hold without a case. The 15 Pro Max, on the other hand, with its rounded edges, feels infinitely more comfortable to hold. And when you're handling your phone for hours every day like I do, that makes a huge difference on your user experience. Not only that, but the 14 Pro Max with its polished stainless steel is very slippery. And on those occasions when I was using it without a case, I was constantly terrified that it would slip from my hands and shatter. I have a much improved sense of security with this new phone, which feels much more grippy and less likely to manipulate itself out of my hand. In fact, I'm so confident I've decided to, believe it or not, live dangerously and go caseless. Yep, haven't done that in years. Another biggie for me is Apple has finally ditched the lightning cable for charging and data transfers. Now, the European Union basically forced Apple to make the switch to a USB Type-C cable, and whether you agree with that policy or not, the benefits are enormous. Because with the right USB 3 cable, which by the way, you have to purchase separately, you can now transfer pictures and videos from your iPhone to your other devices 20 times faster than you could with the old lightning cable. Now, you should know this is only going to work with the Pro and Pro Max models. And I don't know about you, but the older I get, the more precious my time is. So that's a colossal deal for me, and maybe it is for you too. The 15 Pro Max is also the only Apple phone to come with a 5 times optical zoom, so you can really get those tighter close-up shots without compromising quality for the most part. And while there are Android phones with twice as much optical zoom, this is a major camera improvement that you may or may not be able to live without. As a content producer, for me, it's a really important bump up. The other barely perceptible difference between this year's model and last year's is size. The 15 Pro Max is just a tad shorter and a tiny bit narrower, but it's also slightly thicker, perhaps to accommodate the slightly bigger battery inside. Now, if you're like me, and I'm betting you are, battery life is critical. I mean, what good does it do you to have a phone that can do all this whiz-bang stuff if it threatens to conk out on you halfway through the day? So I'm hoping for even better battery life than the best-in-class battery inside the 14 Pro Max, which was exceptional. Here's a perfect example, in fact, of what I'm talking about. 7 hours of screen on time on my 14 Pro Max with nearly 40% battery left. Now that's impressive. One of the other very big changes from last year is the mute switch on the side of last year's model has now been replaced by what Apple calls an action button. Since its inception, the switch was used to silence your phone, and the new action button can still be used to do that, but now you can assign it to do a number of other functions when you press it, like launch the camera, or the flashlight, or even call your mom. Really any number of things. But for now, at least, it can only be programmed to do one thing at a time. So you have to decide what that function will be based on what's most important to you. But I do still think it's a very cool feature. Speaking of cool features, now with the new USB-C port on the 15 phones, you can actually charge another USB-C device that's running low on battery from your phone, even if that device is an Android. How about that? There are other improvements and differences between the 14 Pro phones and the 15s, but honestly, most of them I think are the kinds of things that only techies would care about, really. For instance, yes, the 15 Pros have a new faster A17 Pro chip inside, but trust me, if you own a 14 Pro phone, you probably won't notice the difference in speed in daily use. And other than the 5x optical zoom on this year's Pro Max and more megapixels, your pictures from last year will look pretty much as good as the ones taken on this year's phones. And yes, the new phones come with iOS 17, which has a lot of nice new features, but guess what? That same operating system is available on every iPhone, going all the way back to the 10XR and the second generation SE phones. I do want to address one other thing though. A number of people who were lucky enough, like me, to receive their 15 Pro phones have been complaining that the devices get so hot sometimes they're uncomfortable to use. Now, I did have my phone heat up one time when I first set it up, which I think is somewhat normal. I've not noticed really a problem with overheating personally, but Apple has already said it's going to address the issue with a software update soon. So I'm satisfied with that answer, at least for now. So the question is, are the biggest changes I've outlined in this video enough for you to take the plunge? Feel free to let me know in the comments below, or maybe you've already ordered or received one of the iPhone 15 models. Let me know below what you think. Also, please subscribe and click that notification bell and like and share the channel with your friends and family. And as always, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time on Totally T-Mac with more news you can use.